Hello, welcome back to Your Money, the show that helps you make it, manage it, and spend it. I'm Ali Velshi. In today's Money Talks, we are helping you make the most of your home. Real estate consultant Paul Purcell of Braddock and Purcell is taking your questions about buying, selling, and maintaining your home. So call us at 1-800-304-3638. Email. The phone lines are open. The email's open, although I seem to be doing something to my email which causes me to be deleting every email that I open up, which is fine for all those ones that are offering to sell me free Viagra. But for yours that have actual important questions, I'm just trying to work around that. So be patient if it takes me a second or two to get to your email. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Paul, welcome back.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
Great.
You know, on this network now, the real estate is such a big issue that we have a whole show dedicated to it, Open House with Jerry Willis. And I know you're on that show a lot. But I would argue that while a home has been the average American's biggest asset for a long time, this has become something so interesting because certainly over the last 5 years where a lot of people have lost some money in the stock market initially, your home was the one place that you owned.
Right.
One of the questions we get a lot from people is, do you think this is a housing bubble? Do you think this bubble is going to burst? And in most cases, it's only relevant if you're buying or selling. Because if you didn't ever realize a gain or a loss, it won't matter. But where are we in this cycle of real estate?
Well, just as an aside, my mother used to always say, you know, all the neighbors were talking about housing prices, and they live in Southern California, in the home that I grew up in, and she would say very wisely, this only makes a difference to me or matters to me when I go to sell it.
Correct.
In the meantime, sort of who cares? The bubble question. You know, we really... Look, real estate probably from the 30s to the 50s until the 70s really remained relatively constant. You know, we bought homes, we stayed in them, we didn't view them as speculative, and that's actually an extremely important comment. They aren't speculative. This isn't a liquid investment. It's your home, and it's a long-term position, and it should be viewed as such. But we are so focused on it because of what's happened primarily since I think the incredibly high inflation rates of the very early 80s, when interest rates came back down after that, suddenly there was this sort of a floodgate that opened, and property values increased, and it became our focus, and it suddenly became the largest portion of our net worth. Bubble. I'm sorry, I keep avoiding that.
Well, because you can't give a good answer to that. If you're trying to sell homes for people and buy homes for people, the answer that people want to hear is different.
Well, I'll tell you, actually, I believed that we almost had approached a bubble-like status, if you will, last spring.
Right.
You remember what the market was like on every seaboard, up and down both coasts of the United States of America, and to some degree in markets in the center of the United States. Right. We had such increases, they were out of proportion. A 30% increase, for instance, here in New York in the first quarter of 2004 versus the last quarter of 2003. Yeah. There's something wrong when that happens. Right. Nothing can sustain itself. The low interest rates actually negated young people's the high prices, even though we had low interest rates, negated a young person's ability to buy because they just couldn't afford the property.
Right, you couldn't get it in the beginning.
Precisely. So I felt near bubble-like. I don't feel that now. I feel it's not the bloom is off the rose. We still have very solid markets on the coast, but it's not that frenzy.
Now, we were talking a little about homeowners associations earlier, and it's kind of interesting because here in the Northeast, particularly in New York, we have these co-ops that we buy into, and it's all about the rules. Right. I mean, it's not that the rules are incidental to your purchase. No. When you buy a co-op, an apartment in New York City, if it's a co-op, and most of them are, you have more rules than you ever thought existed. Right. What, in your experience, can one do about it? Because you must have had clients who wanted to buy $1 million or $2 million apartment who in the end won't do it because of the rules.
Exactly. Co-ops exist primarily here in New York. They're in San Francisco, Chicago to some degree, some in Boston, but really our market here in New York is made up of about 80 to 85% of cooperative apartments, and the balance is in real property, condominiums or townhouses. And it is probably one of the most confusing things to someone, even to New Yorkers, but certainly someone who's moving here from someplace else. A cooperative apartment is a corporation, and it's just what the name implies. You're living in a cooperative environment with your neighbors. You are buying shares in that corporation. You don't own real property. You are given something called a proprietary lease. This lease entitles you to occupy the apartment that are attached to the shares that you own.